Hello, students. If you've been in the studio with me before, you definitely know what I was just playing. That was our first warm up that we usually go through. And today we're here to talk about the Overtone Series, which, believe it or not, if you've heard of it or you haven't heard of it, that's what we're actually doing when we do our warm ups. Is we're playing the Overtone Series. What is it, and why is it important, especially for brass players? Stay tuned. So I think brass players in particular have an innate understanding of what the Overtone series is and how it works. And there's a good reason for that. Brass instruments, many people might wonder, well, how can you teach the trumpet and the French horn and the trombone, tuba, all these other brass instruments, euphonium, mellophone if you play that. How are you able to teach all those instruments? Well, the reason is that no matter what we're dealing with, which instrument, um, we're just dealing with a tube. And in the physics world, I think they call this a close-ended tube. And it's close-ended because there's an open end here and an open end here. But this end is closed. This end is closed when we have our lips to the instrument. And so we only play the Harmonics series. We know just innately from having practiced and doing the warm-ups what these things are. So we're going to take a little bit of a deep dive into this today and see how it applies to our instrument. All right, everyone who's signed up for extended services now is a trumpet player, so we're going to focus mostly on the trumpet. Now, I'm going to ask you a question and have you think about it for a second. If we play no valves, what's the lowest note that this instrument will play? Give that a thought for a second. You probably answered low C. Now, that's not actually true. There's actually a really, really low C, and that is what we call the fundamental pitch of this instrument, and it's an octave lower than that. It's not easy to play on the trumpet. It's very difficult to play on trumpet, but here's low C. And trumpet players, we would call this pedal C, but it's actually the fundamental of our instrument. I'll see if I can get it. It's pretty hard to play. So that's actually the pitch of our instrument, is that very, very low C. And our low C, the one that we're all very familiar with, is actually the first harmonic. And what is a harmonic? Well, we just discussed the fundamental of this instrument is the really low note. That is I'm going to use some science words here. That is the frequency that this instrument resonates at. And the low C is the first harmonic of our tube. Okay. You can probably guess now, if C is our first harmonic, what's our second harmonic? What's the next one up? That's open, no fingers. It's G, right? So that's the second harmonic is G, the first harmonic C, and the fundamental is that crazy low one. So when we're doing our warm-ups, we're playing, this instrument is only capable of the Overtone series. The valves help us change things in the slide if you play the trombone. But when we do our warm-up, we're just playing the harmonic series of this instrument, of that tube. If you can imagine, there's no valves on it. We're playing the second harmonic, down to the first harmonic, back up to the second harmonic. So, and then obviously it extends from there. If you're familiar with some of the higher notes, C, E, G, we're going to talk about those in a little more detail. So one of the unique features of the Overtone series is that it goes on forever upward. It has a dead end below that fundamental, that really low C, is the bottom of it. But it extends forever up high. And as we're learning our instrument, and even I've been playing this instrument for, well over 30 years now, I'm still working on the Harmonics series. So the reason I'm so particular about our warm-ups and that we always get those in is that is the most basic thing that we can do with our instrument is playing through the Harmonics series. So for those who don't know or maybe haven't gotten to some of the higher notes yet, there's the low C. That's our first harmonic, right? Now notice I'm not playing any vowels here. So C, then G, then C, then E, then G. Now those are all the ones that sound kind of good on the instrument. Well, not all of them, but it's most of the ones that we're familiar with. The next one is technically a B flat. And you may not realize you can play a B flat without using any vowels. It doesn't sound quite right. So here's what a B flat should sound like. I'm going to play a low one and then a high one for you with our normal fingering. So get that pitch in your ear. I'm going to play it open. So you might notice it sounds a little out of tune. It's actually quite a bit flat. But that's actually another harmonic of this closed tube that we talked about. So if I play all those in a row, right, so that's our sixth harmonic. Sounds kind of unusual. But it extends forever. And in fact, throughout your entire time playing a brass instrument, you're going to be constantly worried about how high you can play. Now, to me this day, I still wonder, can I hit this note? Can I not hit that note? Some days are better than others. It can be very tricky. So I'm going to play through open. I can't get very high, but I'll try. I'm going to play all the open notes, all the open harmonics on the instrument. I can usually get a little higher than that, but I haven't warmed up today. So that's just a kind of rough guide as to what the harmonic series looks like on the trumpet. We're going to go a little bit deeper now. So earlier in the video I said something about how the harmonic series is really all we're doing on the trumpet, and that sounded kind of maybe false to you because we clearly play notes besides those notes. There's all the notes in between, and how do we achieve those? Well, by changing our fundamental. So if you've been in the studio with me, we went over this, but every time we add a valve, we're adding one of these tubes here. This one is first valve tube, second valve, third valve tube. Or if you play the trombone, you're changing the fundamental by moving the slide. That's kind of a short trombone, and the longer we make it, we lower the fundamental. So all the notes that we play are some part of that harmonic series with a different fundamental. We change that fundamental by changing which valves that we're pressing. So second valve. I'm just making the trumpet a little bit longer each time I do that. And if you were a beginner with me in the studio, we went over this in quite some detail about, and you guessed, I had you guess, right, which valves might lower the instrument just a little bit. And the reason we have three valves is so we can play all of the notes that are, it's called chromatics, but we're playing all the chromatic notes by moving our fingers and changing the fundamental of the instrument. We don't usually think of it this way. We usually just think, oh, well, we play, D is fingered like this. But D, it shares a fundamental, or shares a harmonic note, or a harmonic number with the note G. So if we play G and we extend the instrument by pressing valves, eventually we get down to low D. Low D is the same harmonic as G, but with a lower fundamental because the instrument is so much longer. Right? It's a lot to think about. We don't normally think of the instrument this way, but it is how it works. All right, so just talking about that, what's our practical thing that we're going to be working on Wednesday? Well, We're going to try lowering the fundamental as much as possible. And you can probably guess, to make the tubing as long as possible, we're going to press down all 3 valves. What we're going to do is we're going to do some of our warm-ups, but we're going to do them kind of backwards. We're going to start, not on that fundamental, which is really hard to play, but we're going to start on that first harmonic. So we're going to press all 3 valves. If you're a trumpet player, you know that's low F sharp. Right? The next note up. And we're not even going to talk about the notes. We're just going to talk about the harmonics. This is our second harmonic. Right, so that was 2 octaves of playing the harmonics of this fundamental. Now, if you're pretty skilled with the instrument, you can do that in succession. Right? But you can also skip harmonics around, and that's a lot more tricky. Like that. That makes it a lot trickier to play, doesn't it? Now, for those of you who are interested in screeching up some of those high notes, we're going to take a look at that next. Okay, so one of the best ways, I think, to explore the extreme high range is to explore it just like we did with all 3 valves. We've lowered our fundamental as far as we can on this instrument. And we're able to see what it feels like to play really high without actually playing really high. So that high note that I think the one I just played was a high F sharp. So let's find low F sharp. That's F sharp. I'm going to play the high one. And I'm going to do that with all 3 fingers. And then if you've an advanced student having worked with me for a while, we've done this before. We're going to see how high we can get on the Harmonics series with all 3 valves, starting on that high F sharp, fingered 1, 2, 3. Oh, I didn't quite get the super high one. That's what I wanted. But for those of you who've heard of double C, that's not the C in the staff, and it's not the C above the staff. It's the C all the way above that. I very nearly hit a double C, or at least I hit the same harmonic, almost. How did I do? What am I talking about? Well, I lowered the fundamental to F sharp for our purposes, and that caught me all the way up almost to not the F sharp on the top of the staff, but the F sharp above. Well, if I was able to continue doing that, I'll have to reverse my fingers so I don't get confused here. Let's see. That's F sharp. That's again that screechy high F sharp. G, right? G sharp or A flat. A, na, na, na. If I were able to do that with no fingers, I would hit that double C that everyone gets so excited about. I can't hit a double C, but I'm going to try to do my best. And I'm going to start on that high C, the one of octave above. And let's just see how high I can get today. Every day is different. I seem to be having trouble playing high notes today, but here we go. And that's about the extent of my range. That was almost a G. And on good days, I can hit a G okay. So these overtones, this harmonic series, it's really important that we have some understanding of how it works, and then that nice little trick of using all 3 valves to explore high range playing while not quite playing as high. So I'm going to wrap this up for you in just a moment. Okay, so for follow-up students, what we're going to do on Wednesday, we're going to explore, basically we're going to be working through some of the warm-ups. We might try tonguing them. Sometimes it's easier to hit the higher notes when you tongue them. But we're probably going to spend most of our time with all 3 valves pressed to see just how high we can get. Now, if you happen to own an instrument with 4 valves, you can actually explore even more than that. So that's pretty rare to find those instruments, but they do exist. But euphonium players, for example, you can explore very high range playing using all 4 valves where your fundamental is very, very low. and that enables you to really explore super duper high. So we'll be exploring that on our Wednesday session. In the description below, I encourage you to view a video I recently discovered that's kind of will blow your mind about the Overtone series, how these harmonics work in real life. It turns out this is the basis for all of music. There's a reason that we have things like major chords and minor chords, and it all loops back to this idea of the Overtone series and the Harmonic series. And even if you listen to, have you ever wondered, there's a couple things, right? And I'm just going to leave this as an open-ended question. Maybe we'll discuss it. Why are there only 12 notes? Why do music's hundreds and hundreds of years, thousands of years old, why do they all have so much in common from around the world? Give that some thought, because it all comes back to the Overtone series. All right, have a good one. Let's see you on Wednesday.